Happy Friday. What's going on, guys? Hell of a weekend coming up in the football world. Hell of a college slate. Starting to get into some of these conference matchups. Got some great football coming up this weekend. NFL still running hot. Another winner last night. My guy John crushing the NFL right now. 14-4 to start the season. Niners first half -7. And I'm going to say this, okay? John calls me up yesterday morning. He starts telling me he wants, he's going to send out the Niners first half. And I got the reasoning, right? I mean, what was it? The Giants were outscored 74-zip in their prior 3 games dating back to last year's divisional round versus the Eagles. So, Giants, it was the right read. It hits, it catch, everything. I've never seen John bet a first half game before. So, that is how much he is firing on all cylinders right now. He's even stepping out of his comfort zone, going on the first half. Seen him go second half bets, bet games, at halftime. You guys know that. I've never seen him send out a first half bet. So, that is how things are rolling right now in the NFL. 14-4, another winner last night, and really, really fired up for this weekend slate in college football, guys. A lot of good matchups coming up. We got a lot of conference football, like I already mentioned. FSU, Clemson, going to be a great matchup. Obviously, everyone's talking about Colorado, Oregon, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and that's one of the games we are going to dive in today. 2-1 on these college football Fridays on the free bets. Going to have another free bet for you guys tonight in this Friday slate. And, of course, make sure you guys tune back in tomorrow. Going to be here in the morning / early afternoon, depending on where you're at, for the noon Eastern slate of football. Going to be on a bit before that, talk about some of the early games, talk about some of the afternoon games. And if you guys have been tuning into these, the last couple of weeks, you guys know there's specific conferences I keep up with for primarily the Power 5. And, this is when we start to get into some of the good action. This is where a lot of trends start to come in. This is where we're starting to get into, just a lot of the conference matchups, a lot more opportunities I find to find value. And we're going to get into some of that today. So let's go ahead and start diving in. Really fired up. Hope everyone's having a good Friday and hope everyone has a big weekend. Let's talk about 2 of the games going on tonight. We'll talk about a couple of the games going on tomorrow. We will get into this Ohio State Notre Dame game. Wisconsin at Purdue. Let's start there. A little bit of Big Ten action going on this Friday evening. Wisconsin right now 2-1 straight up, 1-2 against the spread on the season. Purdue 1-2 straight up and against the spread. They're coming off a loss to Syracuse. Didn't look too bad. I mean, the interception there was a bit of a problem. 4 turnovers in that game there for Purdue. Hard to win games when you're turning over the football. And the inverse of that, Wisconsin, they rushed for 207 yards last week. That's what they do. They average over 200 rushing, but they forced turnovers. 6 turnovers, 5 interceptions. So you have Purdue who lost the game because of the turnovers. You have Wisconsin who won against Georgia Southern because of the turnovers they forced. And it's going to be an interesting matchup here heading into this Friday evening. As far as everything else, I mean, the run game is what Wisconsin's known for. And ran by Allen right now. He's coming off a 90-yard game. And then everything going here for Purdue. Offensively, Card, he's been decent through for 300 yards against Syracuse. They got the yards, just the turnovers, like I mentioned. Weird total reads here going on here. So matchup history is very overtrending. Last 4 meetings between these two, average of 65.5 points per game. But both these teams playing under football right now. Purdue's last 2 go under, averaging 48 points per game. Wisconsin's last 2 go under, averaging 51 points per game. Wisconsin already a bit more of an under-trending team just in the past. And let's talk about the past because that's a big-time thing here. 10 straight wins. That's actually 14, but 10 straight wins, 7-3 against the spread for Wisconsin in this matchup. They've won the last 3 by an average of 16.3 points. They did have a crazy meeting, not this past meeting at Purdue, but 4 years ago. The second time ago at Purdue, 3 overtimes, they pull it out 47-44. That was the last time they had a somewhat close game. Other than that, Wisconsin's dominated this matchup. As to why they're a 6-point road favorite, got to be a lean to the under in this matchup, and got to be looking at the Wisconsin Badgers. That is where I am on tonight. This is going to be conference ownership. I'm all about conference ownership trends, just like we talk about in the NFL. We talk about divisional trends, and this is conference ownership. Purdue, the turnover problems. I will say Wisconsin's taken a bit of a step back this year, not looking as good as in the past. But I think what Purdue lost in Hartman, they haven't quite replaced yet. Offensively, they haven't gotten on to the same level. And defensively, they were already problematic last season, and they're still dealing with that. So last year, they were competitive in this conference just because of the offense, what they had with Hartman and everything else. Haven't seen that carry over this year, and still the defense is problematic. I imagine Wisconsin's going to run all over them. We'll see if that's the case. Purdue's defensive weakness has been the passing game, giving up almost 277 passing yards per game. Meanwhile, it's the opposite here for Wisconsin. They win the battle of the trenches. So we'll see what goes on in this matchup. But I'm going to be riding Wisconsin minus the 6 tonight. That line opened up 6.5, went as low as 5, back up to 6. Anything under a touchdown here, I'm comfortable laying with the Badgers. Now let's talk ACC football. NC State at Virginia. We were on Virginia last Friday against Maryland. We're taking 14.5, 15 technically. But double, 2 touchdowns in that game. They go up early. Thought we were going to be okay in that game. Looked really good in the first quarter. And even midway through the third quarter, only down a touchdown, taking 15 points. You think we're going to cover that game. We don't. They ended up getting crushed there in the third and the fourth. They lose that one there to Maryland, 42-14. You have Colandrea, who's going for his second career start in that game, through 3 interceptions. Meanwhile, NC State coming off a monster bounce-back win against VMI. Prior to that, had the tough contest with Notre Dame. And they did it all on the ground, 234 rushing yards against VMI. I imagine something similar will carry over here against Virginia. And we talked about it last week, guys. I'm not high on Virginia by any means. It was a number play. I did not make that game 14 and 14.5. I made it closer to 10.5, 11. So it was a number play on that game. No number play here for me on this one. Virginia is that bad, and the lean would be ever so slightly to NC State. Again, not a game I'm getting involved in. Only game I'm on tonight is Wisconsin. This NC State team, they've been okay. You have a little bit of a weird situation quarterback-wise. So Armstrong, who used to be the quarterback for Virginia, now 5th year, transferring to NC State, and he threw 3 interceptions in that last game and against Notre Dame, against the better opponent. But Virginia might be similar to VMI, or closer to VMI, I should say, than they are to Notre Dame, if that makes sense as far as where they are on tier-wise. But yeah, it's just too tough to back Virginia. Virginia's been very high scoring, and that's the problem. They're a team with a defensive identity with no fucking defense. All 3 of their games have gone over 63 points per game. They've given up 42.3 points per game, which is just tough to do. Meanwhile, NC State, the opposite side of the spectrum, very defensive minded. Granted, Notre Dame did put up 40 on it, but Notre Dame, a bit different of an offense here. 2 of their 3 matchups or games have gone under 53 points per game. So that's what we have going on the Friday night. A little quick run through on those, just because, to be honest, the Saturday card is damn appealing. Let's get into some of these big name games and a matchup division trends, guys. Let's get into it. Conference trends, massive, massive, massive. And that's what we're going to talk about today. 2 games I want to focus on here for the Saturday card. I'm going to give you guys my reads on a little bit more. And then we'll talk about the big game on Saturday, Notre Dame versus Ohio State, Fighting Irish versus the Buckeyes. First game we have to talk about. Let's head on over to the Big 12. Oklahoma State at Iowa State. And we talked about this last, 2 weeks ago, in the Iowa State-Iowa matchup, which is just dead under year in, year out. Similar thing here going on with this Oklahoma State matchup. And let's just start talking about the under trends, the under numbers here in this matchup. Oklahoma State, 3 games this year. All 3 games have gone under, averaging 40.7 points per game. Iowa State, 3 games this year. All 3 games have gone under, averaging 29.7 points per game. Last 3 meetings, all went under, averaging 41.3 points per game. Now, granted, if you look at those numbers, this number is a lot lower than those matchup history average of 41.3. Books just keep lowering the total on this matchup. But a big part of it is this Oklahoma State offense and the team in general is not what they used to be. They are giving up. They gave up in their last game at South Alabama. They lost that 33-7, 243 rushing yards. That's the thing. They were held to 7 points. Prior to that, they play a bad Arizona State team, barely got across 20 on the road. Now they're going on the road against Iowa State, one of the better defenses in college football, year in, year out. Now, the Cyclones team, obviously, they don't have any offense going either. They lose that game 10-7 to Ohio last week. I'm sure everyone saw the clip of the field goal that was in, that got ruled a miss, and, they lose by 3, 10-7. But that's the kind of football they're going to play. They're going to play low-scoring football. They do it year in, year out. They allowed just 247 total yards in that game. They're 6th on the college football season, allowing 241 total yards per game. They're allowing just 15 points per game. And here's the real kicker. They're scoring just 10 points per game. So you have two teams, defensive identity, Oklahoma State, all kinds of quarterback issues, injuries left and right. And Iowa State, QB-wise, looking a bit better this season. But, man, just under football here. Oklahoma State versus Iowa State. And that's where we're looking at this matchup. Low total, 36, even 35.5 now at some places. But, man, it's just under trending. Both teams under trending in the matchup. And this Oklahoma State offense, which is part of why we have seen these totals in the past be a bit higher. If you look at the matchup history, Oklahoma State, they've won 9 of the last 11 meetings. They won last year 20-14. So last year's meeting did go under this number of 36. And their offense has regressed even further from that. So we'll see if we even get either team above 20 today. Personally, don't think so. This is going to be about a 17-14, 17-10 game. My lean on the side is to Iowa State. The last time they did meet in Iowa State, they won 24-21. But prior to that, it's pretty much all Oklahoma State owning this matchup. There is a school that's kind of regressed the last couple of years here. 2 years ago, really, really good, obviously, in that Big 12 race. Last year started the regression, and this year it's really continuing. So we'll see what goes on in this matchup. But as far as conference trends go, under with those two schools, got to drill that in there. So looking at that under there for Saturday, I haven't bet it yet. If it goes that 35.5 starts to leave, I'm going to get it in at 36. So there are some spots still with 36. But I think it's going to hang around that number. It's already a low total. I'm just waiting out to see if maybe we can get it out to 37.5. There comes some late action, maybe towards the over. Worth the look, though, to the under in that Big 12 matchup. Let's talk about one of my favorite Pac-12 matchups. And you guys know Utah's a team I love. I love back in Utah. On the season right now, they are 3-0 straight up, 1-1-1 against the spread. We were on them twice of their 3 games. We were on them against Florida. They covered that game. We were on them against Baylor. We got the backdoor push in that game. And we weren't on the game this past week here against Weber State where they did not cover. Then you had this UCLA team, 3-0 straight up, 2-1 against the spread. They just crushed NC Central 59-7. Did it all on the ground. 404 rushing yards. 404 on the ground game. That is ridiculous. That's a lot of running the football. And they do it defensively, stopping the ground game, allowing just 69.7 rushing yards per game. They've allowed just 10 points per game. Now let's look at the matchup history. They haven't had that tough a competition. San Diego State, already a team, defensive identity, offense isn't there. So that's going to be a low-scoring game either way. And then their only other tough competition was Coastal Carolina, who just got their gates blown off last night by Georgia State. So UCLA, yeah, they look good. 3-0 straight up, 2-1 against the spread. But beating up on who? Haven't faced a Power 5 team. Been playing bottom-tier offenses for the most part. And then now you have this Utah team, 3-0 straight up, playing with backup quarterbacks. It was Barnes who was getting the first couple of starts. Wasn't looking that good against Baylor. Johnson comes in against Baylor, looks terrific. He gets to start this past week against Weber State, carries away 193 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions there. And this Utah team, do we get Rising back this weekend? That's the big question mark. Rising is not only one of the most experienced, but one of your better college football quarterbacks. 3 games so far, they haven't needed him. That is how good this Utes team and Utes defense is. I talked about how good UCLA's defensive numbers are, allowing 10 points per game and allowing 69.7 rushing yards per game. But they haven't faced a Power 5 team. Utah against an SEC in Florida, and they play Baylor, Big 12 school. Granted, bottom tier SEC, bottom tier Big 12. Nonetheless, let's get into it. They've allowed 10.3 points per game, 65 rushing yards per game. So almost identical numbers defensively here for these two teams. But the level of competition, night and day here for the Utes. Chances that Rising comes back in this game. And that is a major look on this one. Rising, as per the coach, looked great in practice. No confirmation whether or not he's playing. I'm going to take that as this dude's playing. Hasn't played the first 3 games. There was a chance he was going to play week 1. There was a chance he was going to play week 2. There wasn't one against Weber State just because, you're beating SEC Big 12 schools. Why are you going to play him against Weber State right before conference play? He's had an extra month here of rest. And I get it. He's coming from an ACL injury. How good can he look coming back? But Coach Talk seems pretty confident we're going to see something going on there. And let's get into why I really like this matchup for the Utes this weekend. 1, Utah at home, 8-0 straight up, 6-2 against the spread going into the last season of the 2 games they've had this year. 1-1 against the spread at home this year. Didn't cover there against Weber State. Matchup history. They meet last year, and UCLA beats them 42-32. This is why I love this spot right here. UCLA beats them last year 42-32. Different quarterback at the time. Elizabeth Robinson was still there. They had a different quarterback. Now they're going here this time around with Moore, who's looked all considered decent, but they're a running football team going up one of the better front sevens with one of the better linebacker groups who stops the run game. Prior to last year's meeting where UCLA wins by 10, Utah had won the 5 prior meetings, including 3 in Utah by a combined 141-44. The last 3 times they met in Utah, they've outscored them by 97 points. And now you added a revenge factor from losing last season. UCLA has played nobody. This is strength of schedule. Edge goes to Utah. I mean, the revenge angle, the matchup ownership, the home edge. Utah. I can make a million arguments with this. If Rising's in, I'm close to 14 with this game. Give me the -6 with the Utes, Rising or not, but I am expecting Rising to play. I do think based off coach talk, we see him this come around, but I mean, my goodness, you got so many things here pointing. It's conference battle, 2 top 25 teams, home edge, revenge angle, matchup ownership. Give me it all here for the Utes versus UCLA this weekend. And I love these Utes. I love their defense. And if we get Rising back, it is going to be one hell of a Saturday. Let's talk about the big game on the weekend, guys. Let's talk about it. Ohio State at Notre Dame. And this is going to be a true home game here for Notre Dame. This Ohio State team, 3-0 straight up, 1-2 against the spread. Haven't quite seen that dominance from them this season. Their really only tough competition was Indiana in week 1. They go on the road. They only win that 23-3. And Indiana, that's lower tier Big Ten there. So a little bit of road struggles on the one road game we did see for them. They are coming off a massive win against Western Kentucky, crushed them 63-10. But what does that mean? This Ohio State team does not look as good as previous years. I will say, offensively, they don't look as good as previous years. Defensively, this might be the best defensive unit we've seen from the last couple of seasons. Big part of that, we talk about the Oklahoma State regression. And a big part of their Oklahoma State rejection was Knowles, who used to be the defensive coordinator there over at Oak State, now coming back over to Ohio State. And we're seeing that kind of become a factor here a little bit in Ohio State's defense. So they are picking up a bit better of a defensive identity. As far as, McCord, he's looked all good. They're running the football. They're looking great. They're scoring over 40 points per game, passing for 318. But like I said, the one road game and the one time they face tough competition this year, they only win 23-3. Last year when they meet with Notre Dame, again, another low-scoring matchup. Notre Dame, by the way, trends favor them big time in this. We'll get into all that, but let's keep talking about the Buckeyes here. Last year's meeting, you have Ohio State who won that one 21-10. And then this is not with Hartman. You got to keep in mind that Notre Dame previous seasons, very ground and pound identity. And now you bring in Hartman. So you still have this ground and pound identity or elite defense, elite backs. And now you bring in a stud quarterback to bring in a passing game along with it. Their defense held Ohio State down to 21 points last year. And that was with Stroud and a lot better wide receiver group, a lot better offense altogether for the Buckeyes. So this is Notre Dame taking steps up, Ohio State taking steps down in a revenge angle at home. And let's get into the trends here. Ohio State, last 10 games versus top 15 teams, 1-9 against the spread. We talk about it often with some of these Big Ten schools getting cakewalk schedules. I mean, look at their cakewalk schedule. You play a couple of ranked games in conference a season, and you get Michigan at the end of the year in the Big Ten championship, and those are your ranked games. Call it a year. Now they get Notre Dame. So like I said, 1-9 there. Let's look at the flip side of that. Notre Dame, last 6 games versus a ranked opponent. 6-0 against the spread. Hey. Under trends here. This is where it gets a little bit interesting. So Notre Dame's been playing very overtrending football. Granted, offensively, they've taken massive strides. Already talked about it. The ground game was already there. You bring in Hartman. He's been fluid. Their last 3 games went over, averaging 62 points per game. And I bitched about this last week, I think it was. The one game I go over on them was week 1, and of course that didn't go over. But 9 of the last 10 games, over here for the Fighting Irish. Ohio State on the other side of the spectrum, a little bit of under football. 2 of their 3 games have gone under, averaging 47 points per game. And it's look to the under and look to the home dog here in this one, guys. I mean, plain and simple. The trends line up for it. The revenge factor is there. As far as the over-under, a bit of a weird read, right? What are we going to get here? In Ohio State, offense has regressed. Defense has picked up. We saw them in a defensive battle last year with Notre Dame. Granted, they added Hartman. Could the air raid attack start to maybe make this a bit more of a high-scoring matchup? Could this turn into a shootout? Yeah, I could see it, but lean on the games to the under. I mean, typically when you have these, juggernauts button heads, you see it be a bit more low-scoring. Only chance, I think this total really goes away and gets over this 55.5 is if it becomes either, one team has a 2-touchdown lead in the second half and, one starts pressing as far as throwing the football. Will be an under lean and a lean to Notre Dame. I mean, damn. They're just I'm really high on them this season. I've been high on them since early on. They're looking really good. Going to be their first true test, but they have had the tougher schedule. I mean, you get a nice ACC matchup, NC State, even some of their lower tier, non-Power 5 matchups. Bit more competitive. You get Navy, who I get it, nothing special, but just a bit more competitive than what Ohio State's seen, Western Kentucky, everything else. This is revenge angle with a team who plays well at home, 14-1 their last 15 home games of September. Irish or nothing, under or nothing. I think we're going to be in here for a bit more of a low-scoring game, 24-21, Fighting Irish pull it out. That would be my score prediction on the game of the week. A little bit of a quick episode today, guys. A lot to get to for this weekend. A lot of matchups I'm still diving into furthermore. A lot of prep obviously done earlier in the week, but injury reports for both college football and NFL start coming out today. I ran through this one a little bit quicker than the last couple of Fridays, but with intention. Like I said, we'll be back here tomorrow, noon, or let's call it 11:45 Eastern, 10:45 my time here. It's going to be a lot of matchups to get into. Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, Texas Tech, West Virginia, Miss State, South Carolina, Bama, Ole Miss, Florida State, Clemson, UNC, Pittsburgh, Rutgers, Michigan. A lot of games going to be diving into, and a lot of good matchups. That Colorado-Oregon game we'll get into tomorrow, Friday. Big injury day for both NFL and college ball. That is where I'm getting off to right now. Appreciate you guys tuning in to this quick little college football breakdown. Wish you guys the best of luck on the free bet with Wisconsin, -6 tonight. Hopefully we get another winner there. 2-1 on the college football Friday free bets. And if you guys aren't a How to Beat the Bookie member, come on, what are you waiting for? 14-4, my man John in the NFL. He's been crushing MLB this week as well. 3-3 on MLB this week, and that's splitting dogs and +210s, +150s in there. So you guys know that's big time in the green. It was a losing week for me last week in college football. Looking to get back on track like week 2, back in the green. We'll see if we can get after it. Appreciate you tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe below. See you guys tomorrow.